provide alternative sources of survival. We believe that based on this recommendation, we'll be able to design a lasting and sustainable marine ecosystem in Nigeria. Thank you very much.
So thank you guys. I'd really like to ask on two specific areas that you have provided solutions on, right? The first question that I sort of want to put to you is, how does your blueprint address the inherent corruption in the present security network, in that area, right? Because you mentioned the Navy and the likes. How does your blueprint address the present, corruption issues there? And second, collaboration with communities. How does your blueprint address, one, trust, the building trust? And secondly, how does your blueprint address this question of alternative sources of income for them?
When I have other questions, I have two questions that plug into this.
Yes.
In engaging with local communities, you said enough is not being done. Can you please reconcile that with the over 600 million naira that is paid annually to Tantita? You know what Tantita is, right? How do you reconcile that with over 600 million naira the Nigerian government pays to a private security company called Tantita? And then, in light of marine security, you would recall that, or you should know, that in the last 3 years, there has not been one recorded situation of piracy at sea. Does that not mean that a lot is being done on marine security?
My question is on the NPA, the Marine Protected Area. So how do you think it would impact the local community, the establishment of the Marine Protected Areas? And do you have any mitigation or compensation plans in place from your blueprint? In respect of the NPA, the Marine Protected Areas, how do you think that would impact the local community, the local fishing community? Then, are there compensation plans in place or mitigation plans in that regard? Thank you.
Okay. Thank you very much for your beautiful questions. My partner and I will be sharing the questions and responding accordingly. So I would be responding to the first question from the Chief Judge, which is on the question of inherent corruption in our current security framework. We do understand your concern, and corruption remains a primary problem in Nigeria. However, when we weigh this against the recent political will that has been demonstrated by the federal government of Nigeria, for example, as evident with, by the development, the establishment of the the blue economy, we think that the Nigerian government's political will in that respect could play a role in improving transparency within security frameworks. We think that if the funds are generated and that transparency mechanisms are put into places, we think that the issue with corruption and siphoning of funds can be significantly addressed. And this is evidenced even by the Deep Blue project itself. We see that the fact that NIMASA was given funding despite the fact that the funding was directly given to NIMASA to implement the Blue Economy project, we see significant improvement in terms of purchase of technology, of manpower, and the relevant resources. As such, it's our belief that despite the fact that corruption exists, the political will and the recent examples that we have seen in that regard are sufficient to encourage us and believe that our blueprint will be sufficient to satisfy the requirements necessary. One of your questions regarding 200 million that was paid to private security companies. Our argument really is that local communities are not engaged in terms of the security efforts conducted by NIMASA and the Navy, right? We think that these people are very important.
Sorry, but I disagree. Just check. Right now, just check. It's 48 billion naira.
I understand you.
Quantita employs only indigenous people. So how do you explain that? What more local cooperation should do? The Nigerian Navy's job is being taken over by former veterans. How else to cooperate?
And we actually worked with this, the prize they actually gave. But in that respect, our argument really isn't about whether certain people are employed in that respect. Our argument is that in the Deep Blue policy, right, these stakeholders are not brought on board. Local communities are not consulted. They are not involved in the decision making. And we think that in terms of regulating and prohibiting illegal fishing, we need local communities to be actively involved in terms of citing these vessels and reporting them to the relevant authorities. But then there's also the issue of trust and others. So it is basically our submission that the fact that these local communities are not engaged enough in terms of the security effort, that is our argument, not necessarily whether they are employed, which actually even supports our second argument in terms of providing alternative sources of life support. On the issue of marine security, yes, essentially the Deep Blue project focuses essentially on piracy and oil theft, but there is not enough that has been done in terms of preventing illegal fishing and all that. So despite the fact that there were no recent pirate attack and all that, doesn't mean that vessels still do not turn up that transponders, come into our ocean and cut away our ocean resources. That is exactly what we are trying to solve.
Thank you. I'll come into that. If I said I had a few questions, but I will make sure to get this program first. Now that you have talked about all your different issues, may I ask first of all, which agency has the authority to license fishing in Nigeria waters? What limits do you mean by Nigeria waters? When you say Nigeria waters, what is the limit to Nigeria waters?
The agency that is authorized to license industrial fishing would be NIMASA. And when I refer to Nigerian waters,
you are NIMASA.
Okay. Yes, and when I refer to the Nigerian waters, I meant Nigeria's coastline. So areas, its exclusive economic zone and all those areas.
Thank you very much. You are correct. How far is the steel economy from shore?
Thank you for that question. It is 24 nautical miles. The last time we checked.
200 nautical miles. 200 nautical miles.
Yes.
How do you expect a local to be able to monitor fishing 200 nautical miles away?
So our logic is basically some of these vessels, when they actually come into our territories, right? They sometimes interact with locals in terms of purchasing, goods. In fact, some locals actually services some of these vessels by acting as maybe laborers and cleaners of vessels. So we think that they can actually serve as a third eye for the government and then help in the security efforts. Thank you very much. My partner will be answering the rest of the questions.
On the question on how to build trust between the local communities and other stakeholders in the maritime industry,
So I think the question on local communities has been dropped, and I think we should address
The
Ben's
NPA,
question.
okay. So on the question of how the NPA impacts local communities and whether they are compensation for local communities, our answer is this. The NPA, first, is not just a no-take zone. An NPA can also be designed to become an economic zone. In essence, we can meet what Seychelles has done in its Guide for Nature conservancy project, where it ensures that there was an NPA and the locals were carried around in terms of aquaculture, shrimp and tuna farming, and all of these ensured that the locals were able to participate, to gain value, while ensuring that they were consulted when the no-take zones were being deliberated or when they were being chosen. Now, what we think in terms of compensation mechanism or alternative sources of income for them is that the government has, or should I say, the stakeholders in the sector can provide other vocational mechanisms, since most artisanal fishers already interact with places where oil spillages have already decreased, such as maybe the ability to learn, maybe, and all of these things. Provide grants for them, and the Niger Delta Development Commission already exists for something like this, and we do not think that this should be problematic in the context of friends.
Okay, thank you very much. The next team. So please get ready, and their presentation slides will be set up so that you can go ahead with their presentation. Thank you.
In a small community named Maritopia, there lived a young lady named Sophia, beautiful, intelligent, and a lot of potentials. She lived a regular life until one night when she became a princess overnight, and she had to cater for everybody in the community. Just like that, she became Merlin, and the destiny of the entire community rested on her shoulders. This story is similar to that of the Nigerian marine ecosystem. How just one day was just a regular system, and suddenly it became the IT system. Everybody wants to invest in it, everybody wants to be part of it. Oil exploration, tourism, aquaculture, and a lot more. But just like Sophia, the marine ecosystem faces a lot of challenges, and they need to do more to do it. We need to do more to build a sustainable marine ecosystem. My name is Dr. Beniga, and today we'll be discussing how to build a sustainable marine ecosystem with respect to compliance and execution. To do this, my teammates and I will be captains of the Nigerian ship, and we'll be sailing you through how to build a sustainable marine ecosystem. But before we build and before we start sailing, it's important for us to view the entire component of our ship and check if our ship is fit for purpose. Analyzing the overview of the Nigerian marine ecosystem as a whole, what it entails and what it is. Next, please. Yes, so next. So Nigeria, as a prominent maritime nation in West Africa, boasts of over 850 kilometers of Atlantic coastline and rich marine biodiversity in the coastal states. This expansive ecosystem plays a vital role in economic development, environmental protection, and national food security. Similarly, in the landmark move to harness the vast potentials of the Nigerian maritime assets, the federal government of Nigeria in 2023 established the Ministry of Marine and Blue Economy, with major goals to promote sustainable development, economic diversification, environmental protection. See, there are lots of potentials in the Nigerian marine ecosystem. However, there are challenges, and that's exactly where our ship will not sail, because there are several technical defaults in this system. These challenges include weaker scope. These challenges include security threats, environmental risks, and jurisdictional conflict. So this is how we're going to do it in today's presentation. I will be addressing the challenges, and my team is to be providing a blueprint to solving these challenges. And we'll be closing the entire presentation on the first challenge, that's the environmental. On the first challenge, and the environmental risks, it's important to ascertain that just in Niger Delta, the International Journal for Social Science, Humanities and Management Research in April 2024 reported an average 240 barrels of crude oil gets spilled in the river. What makes this worse is that 20.4% of this spill results from third parties' activities. 17.04% of these spills result from mechanical failure, and this spill contaminates the surface water, the groundwater, the ambient air and crops, threatening life, threatening safety, and strengthening the condition of health of all parties involved. Another problem in the maritime system is security threats. See, we've all heard about the Niger, of the Niger Delta was announced where persons, because of oil theft, because of insecurity, and how persons continuously just damage entire pipelines and all of that. To resolve this problem, my team is to be providing solutions on how to address the security system and how to create a safe and a secure marine ecosystem. And finally, the jurisdictional conflict. Panel, ladies and gentlemen, it's important to note that Nigeria faces significant jurisdictional challenges in regulating its maritime domain, largely due to outdated, fragmented legislations and overlapping institutional roles. Fragmented and outdated legislations include a situation where maritime zones were historically governed by separate outdated laws like the Territorial Waters Act, Exclusive Economic Zones Act, and Petroleum Act. These statutes were based on the 1958 Geneva Convention and not the more comprehensive United Nations Convention laws of the sea, ratified in 1960. These major problems are the contributors to an marine ecosystem. And to solve these problems, there is a need for us to pay attention to problems. What are our problems? Environmental and jurisdictional conflict. And as such, to solve this problem, my team is providing a strategic recommendation. We call it the PVC Master Plan. And this will solve the problem, this will address the issue, and this will help us build a sustainable marine ecosystem. Over to you, my team.
Thank you very much. Judges, ladies and gentlemen, having addressed the challenges that face marine ecosystem, I shall be implementing, we're going to, in order to design a sustainable marine ecosystem that we are in Nigeria currently, we're going to be using the C3 blueprints, and this is the compare, contrast, and construct. No, for the comparison and for the contrasting, we're going to be using countries that have actually had like IF or that are recognized with IGDP for those countries, and Nigeria are not even like, I'll be using Nigeria as a case study to compare to these countries, and things that they're doing right, we're going to try to implement in Nigeria to see how far we can go in our marine blue economic system. The first thing is to compare. So we're going to be looking at the countries of Greece, China, and Japan. So now for Greece, we can see that Greece is home to only around 10.5 million people compared to Nigeria, which has like approximately over 200 million people. And you can also see that the GDP of approximately $190 billion, and yet Greek ship owners control almost a fifth of total global capacity. Using Japan as also another compare system is that the Far East countries disrupt this industry, saying that it's to start building zero emission and even artificial intelligence driven autonomous ships. And its biggest carrier, which is the Ocean Network Express, the one was founded in 2017. After these people, I'm also going to be looking at China. China is a relatively nascent maritime system, and the shipping industry seen massive growth only after the country joined the World Trade Organization in 2001. But today, China has the world's largest seaport, Shanghai, which established 3.3 million TEUs in 2019 alone. World's largest shipping company, that is the China Ocean Foundation. And in Greece, we have just like approximately 10.5 people in your country. Also, we can see that these both countries also have similarities. That is, that they are both close to the proximity of the sea, they both have natural resources, and even according to a review by the Ben Ibrahim Gaba, Chief Executive Officer of GOG Marine Limited, he said that Nigeria has not been able to take advantages of these natural advantages in the maritime industry. And to further see that we have like comparison with those countries, as to the fact that it has like natural resources, they have both proximity to the sea, and their population is even more. So why is Nigeria still lacking in the marine economic system? And that brings us to how we construct what they have and to what we have to implement it and see if it's going to work for us. The first thing we're doing here is the financial incentives. We use like the transparent financial indices of April 2024 that Greece.
How many people are so far?
Actually, for our research, we made mention that we actually were doing
I ask a question. How many people are so
we
far?
can't say for a fact, but we know that probably because we know that there are complaints as the fact that has not been discussed, like equally and all of those things.
The answer is 0.
0.